All right, welcome to pro football. First 50 years. Where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. Now, especially if you're going to check out a game, like if you're going to go back to like the 20s or the 30s, I mean, you can go online, obviously, and find the box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was, somebody kicked, where the game was played at, what the attendance was. You might be able to find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to all newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos, nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So that's all right with you? Let's get it on in today's game, exhibition game. But these couple of heavy hitters during the 50s. Heavy hitters. Rock 'em, sock 'em. Be disappointing seasons for both teams. One never had a chance, and the other one fell apart toward the end there. These two teams met 4 times in the championship game during the 50s. The Lions would win 3 of them. Browns would win the other one. 52 and 53, the Lions would win. 54, the Browns would win. And then in 57, it was, I guess the Lions were just returning serve, I guess, shall we say. Because in 54, the Browns 56 to 10. The Browns beat the Lions 56 to 10. But 57, the Lions would return serve and win 59 to 14. 2 just horrible championship games. But I said these guys, I mean, you figure in the 50s, you figure from 50 to 55, the Otto Graham years. The Browns won every year to the championship. And then they won again in 57. I said, and with the Lions, 52, 53, 54, 57. So they battle each other in this game here. It's an exhibition game. So we got the Lions and the Browns at the Rubber Bowl. Oh, yeah. Akron, Ohio. Exhibition game, August 22nd, 1959. Now, for you historian buffs, Akron, Ohio, okay, but they were number 1, meaning they were the first champions ever. It wasn't the National Football League. It was the American Professional Football League in 1920. I've seen Akron Pros or Akron Indians, but Akron was the first ever champions in professional football, 1920. So they had a good team back then. But this game here, what was, as we're going to see in some articles here, was quite frequented by the Cleveland Browns, obviously, because they're from Cleveland. Akron, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. But if you were looking for, if you thirsted for offensive numbers, this was not the game for you. Once again, it was exhibition. Let's take a look here. As I said, for both these teams, it was a disappointing season. I mean, Bob more so for the Lions than for the Browns. We see with the Lions. I mean, the Lions. Obviously, when you win the championship in '57, and here we are, just in 1959, you gotta have some type of aspirations. Maybe you can get back there. Nope, not even close here. I mean, as you see, once the season started, they lost their first 4, then they won 1, they lost 1, they tied 1, they won 1, they lost another 2. I mean, it's 3-9-1. I mean, that very disappointing season here. They certainly did fairly well and actually played 7 preseason games for crying. They played 12 regular season games and 7. Although this one here is a little misleading because they lost this game. They didn't win this game. They lost this one game. 21-19. So this here is a mistake. This is a boo-boo. They did not beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals beat them. But in that, they had a fairly good exhibition. But once again, it was just exhibition. But you see, I mean, it took them, what did I say? It took them to the 5th week of the season before they beat the Rams, who were actually might have been the worst team in all of professional football that year. So They beat the Rams twice, and then they beat the Cardinals. So the three Lion wins came against horrible teams. I believe both teams, the Rams and the Cardinals, each had 2 wins. So they managed to beat the worst teams in football. So, it was a very disappointing season for the Detroit Lions. The Browns, on the other hand, they were, after 8 weeks, them and the Giants were 6-2, tied for first place, anybody's division. As I forget, the way it ended in the 58 season, came down to the final week of the season. All the Browns went into Yankee Stadium. All the Browns had to do was get a tie or a win, and they won the division. They would have hosted the championship game against the Colts. But the Giants would wind up prevailing, forced a playoff game, which wound up having the following week. The Browns went right back to Yankee Stadium. The Giants would prevail in that one 10-0, and then the Giants would, for 3 weeks in a row, would host the championship game at Yankee Stadium. But you'll see right here, right here, after they beat the Redskins, they were 6-2. Giants were 6-2, anybody's division. Then they had 2 really tough losses here against the Steelers and against the 49ers. Both these teams, the 49ers were 7-5. I think the Steelers were like 6-5-1. So both were good teams, but just 1-point losses. I know Luke Rosa missed I don't remember if it was in both games, but I know Luke Rosa missed an extra point in one of the games. They cost them. They could at least had a tie. But then they went into this game here against the Giants, and they had the slightest of outside chances of still maybe winning the division. They would have had to win both the final 2 games. The Giants would have to lose both. Neither one of those happened. And matter of fact, the Giants were winning this game 48-0 at one point. And so, so the Browns collapsed here. The last 3 out of 4 games they lost, and they wound up with a record of 7-5. So it was fairly disappointing for them. But the Browns were always forced to be reckoned with. This was the late 50s and early 60s was the time for the Giants, and after the Giants, basically after the 63 season, they fell off a cliff. That's when the Browns started coming back. The Browns were in the championship game in 64, championship game in 65. They went to the championship game in 68, 69. Then they kept going to the playoffs. So the Browns were good for a long, long time. But as I said, this game right here, Akron, Ohio, in the Rubber Bowl, and be 22,654 people would attend. So let's check out what Wikipedia has here on the old Rubber Bowl. That's just an odd name for a stadium, but all right, share screen, Wikipedia Rubber Bowl. Okay, here we go. The Rubber Bowl was a stadium located in Akron, Ohio. It was primarily used for American football. And here you go. Aerial view in 2004. This was just before its demise. It didn't last much longer than this. But, from its opening in 1940 until 2008, it served as the home field of the Akron Zips football team of the University of Akron, prior to the opening of Infocision Stadium Summerfield. Throughout its history, it also hosted concerts, professional football, high school football, and other events. It was named after the predominance of the tire industry in Akron. The stadium had a seating capacity of 35,202 and was located in the southeastern Akron, in southeastern Akron, next to Akron Fulton International Airport and Derby Downs. In 2008, the stadium had been mostly vacant, hosting some high school football games. In 2013, the Rubber Bowl was acquired by a marketing group with plans to renovate and update the structure as the home for a professional football team. They were trying to hold it good from the revised United States Football League, but it fell through. The stadium was condemned in 2017, and then, of course, sadly, the demolition Partial demolition began on June 20th, 2018. By 2020, the south and east tiers built into the hillside remained, along with their respective ticket booths, though all wound up in a dilapidated state from damage caused by vandals and weathering. So, most of the artificial turf field last used in 2008 also remained in place during that time, though it had been heavily damaged by vandals and the elements. As part of statewide initiative, the remaining parts of the rubber ball were demolished in mid-2023 after almost 15 years of abandonment. Yeah, that's the problem is that, you got these huge structures and the stuff ain't cheap to take down, But the movement to build a stadium in Akron began in 1939 when Akron Beacon Journal, a newspaper, if you wanted a sports story on the Akron football teams from in the 20s, the Akron Beacon Journal was the newspaper for you. The Akron Beacon Journal sports editor James Schlemmer and Akron Municipal Airport Director Bain Fulton began a campaign asking patrons just to donate $1 each. Later that year, the Work Progress Administration authorized construction of a horseshoe-shaped stadium in southern Akron. Construction lasted approximately 1 year, and the first event hosted was a state music and drill competition in June 1940. Dedication ceremonies were held in August 1944, a crowd estimated between 36 and 40,000, the day before the running of the 7th Soapbox Derby. Remember that stuff when I was a kid. The primary use for the rubber ball was the American football games. The Akron Zips football team was the primary tenant, and they played their first game in the stadium on October 5th, 1940 against Western Reserve University, getting the first win in the facility on November 9th, 1940 against Kent State. Prior to their playing at the rubber ball, the Zips football team played at Butchtoll Field and only held 7,000 seats. Let's see. Wow. The Zips played 324 games at the stadium, which included their first ever appearance on ESPN in 1986. Wow. In 2003, the university began exploring the feasibility of building an on-campus stadium to replace the rubber ball, which was in disrepair and several miles away from the campus. In 2007, plans were announced for a new stadium, later known as Infocision Stadium Summerfield. I mean, cut me a break. I can't. Anyway. So with work beginning in January 2008 and opening in September 2009. We got other uses. The Kent State Golden Flashes football team play games there. The stadium also hosted professional football on a number of occasions. The Cleveland Rams, because they were in Cleveland until 1945. 1946, they went out to the left coast. The Cleveland Rams in the National Football League played 2 regular season games at the Rubber Bowl, one in 1941 and one in 1942. And the NFL's Cleveland Browns used the stadium for 19 preseason games between 1950 and 1973. This game would be one of them, as we're going to see in one of the articles I have. They talk about the Browns playing a game in the Rubber Bowl. Let's see. On November 27, 1952, the Rubber Bowl hosted a home game for the financially troubled and league-controlled Dallas Texans. The Texans recorded their only win in franchise history, 27-23. Shocking. I'll tell you what. Victory over the Chicago Bears in front of approximately 2,500 fans. Wow. Hallis had been so confident the Bears would beat the lowly Texans that he started his second-string players. Well, the Rubber Bowl has also hosted about 1,500 football games for high schools. But, I mean, you can see here, Rubber Bowl, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, Hartford Circus caught fire. Black Sabbath, Simon and Garfunkel, Alice Cooper, Three Dog Night, the Rolling Stones. My goodness. Bob Dylan, the Grateful Dead, Tom Petty. Oh, my goodness. Wow. So, view of the stadium in 2020 is seen from the north end zone. The area of the right is where the west stands and press box stood prior to demolition. So it was around for a while, and a lot of things happened, in there. Now I'll show you here real fast. I gotta. It's kind of like not an actual one. It's like a copy of the actual program for this game we're talking about here. Let me share the stadium. As I said, once again, it's not the real McCoy, but gotta find it here. There we go. Guy looks like Joe Cap to me. I don't know if you know who Joe Cap is, but with the single bar, you got the teeth, the single bar. Although the reason why it's not Joe Cap is because this dude has a chin strap on. I'm not sure if Joe Cap ever had a helmet on without a chin strap. I mean, he didn't. I mean, half the time he didn't have a chin strap. Period. He just put his helmet on. But here we got the rubber ball. Saturday, August 22nd, 1959, the Browns versus the Lions. So if you want it, it's on Etsy. Sale ends in 4 days for $26.84. We got here free shipping, or what do we got here? Doesn't say anything about shipping. Highlights, but so it's a remake, but I mean that's pretty much. And I'll show you here. Let's go. Let me show you the screen here. I'll show you that a lot of the covers kind of look like that. All right, what do we got here? Oh, see, this is the one right here. This is the one I'm talking about. But you see quite a few of these other copies. Right, this one here. Same dude, but it's Lake Forest versus Bluffton. Which one is this here? This is Kingston Stadium. So it's a lot. This dude must be pretty damn famous. His face is on a lot of different programs. Because the one I just read said Bluffton. I know there's a Bluffton in South Carolina. So apparently this must be like that dude's face must be on a lot of different programs. Let's see. Here you go. The Akron Rubber Bowl was a quarter-of-a-mile dirt oval that operated from 41 to 59, originally slated. Is this here? Here we go. Look at that. All right, you got some the Akron Rubber Bowl, quarter-of-a-mile dirt oval. This is what you got. You got these little out here racing out here. How cool is that? Here you got another one there. All right. Very, very cool. Let's see. Same thing here. All right, quarter of a mile. Very, very cool. However, let's see here. It's this here. Unfortunately, right, the Rubber Bowl located in Akron, Ohio, was a historic stadium that was a unique place in the city's history. So, unfortunately, when it just starts getting dilapidated and nobody, there we go, they're starting to take it down here. All right. Unfortunately, they don't usually last forever. What do we got here? Akron bids farewell to the Rubber Bowl. Hey, Rubber Bowl. Hey, there's all. You got stuff going up in there. Hey. Let's see. Is this what do we got here? Anything? Oh, here we go. Here we go. The Akron Rubber Bowl. Hey, you see. Hey. Couldn't because you got a road right here. All right, so they couldn't, really make it a bowl shaped. As you can see, this is the overhead view because you got the road right here once again. So it's like this. They said this was like built into I don't know, like some dirt and all and everything on the one side. There we go, right over here. Akron, right? What made the Akron so special? Well, I said it was a lot of games got played in there, preseason games, and there we go. Right, so actually, I guess over here, a lot of stuff was taken down. I guess this wasn't taken down just yet, maybe, but you can see everything was kind of removed over here. You see the dirt just stays here. See the Akron Zips. So. Right, here we go. Here's a good overhead view of it. See, they certainly packed them in. Akron. Akron Municipal Stadium, the Rubber Bowl. So a lot of games, a lot of things got played there. Pro football was played there, and obviously the Browns when they were playing. I'm going to show you in the articles I'm going to read here. I played there quite often, during each preseason. So let's what we got here. Let's start off here. The Akron Beacon Journal. Right? If you want to know about Akron, especially Akron football, if you want to try to find anything about like the Akron pros or anything like a game result or something like that back in the 20s, the Akron Beacon Journal was the paper for you. Let's go to the August 22nd, 1959 edition of the Akron Beacon Journal. See what they got to say on the game here. All right, here we go. All right. Now, up. Hold on. It's 2 pages here. I put the wrong page up there. It was page 2. Here we go. Page 1. Here we are. All right. Here we go. Paul back home with his Browns. The Browns and Paul Brown are at the bowl, Rubber Bowl, that is, tonight for the 13th time. So basically like every year, pretty much played one game there. Paul Brown is back in town. The master of the professional football coaching profession will send his Browns against the Detroit Lions at the Rubber Bowl tonight. Kickoff is scheduled for 8:30. Don't be late. This will mark the 13th time the Browns have appeared at the Rubber Bowl since Paul Brown started his professional career in 1946 in the All-American Football Conference. And this marks the 13th time the Beacon Journal Charity Fund has been ticketed for a share of the receipts. You notice a lot of the preseason games, a lot of them, they were played at different stadiums and all, but a lot of them wound up being for charity. So a lot of them got played for some very good causes. We always look forward to playing our game in Akron, said Brown. It is like coming home. We played our first game in the Rubber Bowl in 1946, and we have played there every year since, with the exception of 1954. We like Akron, and I believe through the years, Akron has liked us. Paul Brown, as head coach of the Massillon High School, was present when Rubber Bowl hosted its first game. Massillon and Alliance drew 27,000 people to that game. He has been here 12 times with the Browns, and he has drawn 314,611 fans with his brand of professional football. Brown would like nothing better than to beat the Lions here tonight. Detroit is the only team boasting an edge over Brown. The Lions have won 7 of 8 regular season, including the playoffs games from the Browns, and have won 8 lost 3 and tied 1 in the preseason play against Cleveland. Well, Brown will start Jim Nanowski at quarterback, but has scheduled Milt Plum for a lot of action. And the Browns, as they have for the past 2 seasons, will feature. Okay, so let's go to. All right, let me go to the next page of the Akron Beacon Journal here. Page 2. All right, so they will feature the running of Jim Brown, of course, right? The fullback who set a National Football League rushing record last season. Akron's sentimental favorite among the Browns. Let me just refresh here. They're performing a security verification. Good. It was successful. Akron's sentimental favorite among the Browns starters will be Lou the Toe Groza. The veteran Groza is the only member of the Browns team who saw action in Cleveland's 1946 game at the Rubber Bowl. Wow, shows you how long. And Groza was around for a long time. He retired in the 60s. This is Lou's 14th professional season, and the Browns are still depending on his boots for that small edge which separates the pro teams. The number of Akron fans and those from different areas in Ohio will be at the Rubber Bowl tonight to watch the performance of Hopalong Cassidy. He will start for the Lions at halfback and rates as a double threat as a ball carrier and pass receiver. Coach George Wilson of the Lions is expected to start veteran Tobin Rote at quarterback. He didn't see too much action in the Lions' first 2 exhibition games, but has been tagged ready for the Akron game. This game is the grid part of Akron's Week of Champions, which started with the All-American Soapbox Derby last Sunday and closes this Sunday with the final 18 holes of the Rubber City Open. There you go. So Akron, it doesn't get all the hoopla, whatever of some other teams, but it's a sports town, that's for sure. All right, so now we're going to go to the August 22nd, 1959 edition of the Detroit Free Press. Let's see what they got to say about the game. Detroit Free Press. Where are we at, baby? There we go. Lionsgate, guard up for Browns tonight. Refresh it again. There we go. Try it again. There we are. You may have to be patient for still another week. Our Lions continue to experiment. 4 rookie guards will be employed in the offensive line Saturday night when the Lions face the Cleveland Browns in Akron in their 3rd exhibition game of the summer. Coach George Wilson's training timetable calls for the Lions to make steady progress toward the opening of the National Football League season in late September. But the rookie guards have forced a slight delay. The 4 all were with the college all-star squad and have trained with the Lions only since last Monday. Wilson is anxious to see what they can do. Hence, they will play most of the game. Game time is 7:30 p.m. WJR in Detroit, with some 30,000 expected at the Akron's Rubber Bowl. We have to know how much help we can expect from these new men, Wilson said. So we'll throw them against the Browns and see what happens. The rookies involved are Mike Raybold, Bob Grotkow, Harry Jacobs, and Phil Blazer. Raybold, the Lions' number 2 draft choice from Indiana, seems the strongest of the quartet. They are by no means alone in their first taste of professional play. Nick Petrosani, the bulky new fullback from Notre Dame, will make his debut against the Browns. With the rookies providing his shield, Tobin Rote makes his first start of the season at quarterback. Just what you want to hear, right? First start of the season and the exhibition, and they got a bunch of rookies trying to protect you. Good luck there. The strong-arm Texan has sparkled in the Lion workouts this week. Except for the rookie guards and Petrosani, the Lions plan to make greater use of veterans than they did in their first two games. The Detroit exhibition record lists a 2020 tie with the Los Angeles Rams and a dismal 21-19 loss to the Chicago Cardinals. Jim Nanowski, local hero making good with the Browns, will start at quarterback against the Lions. Nanowski was moved ahead of veteran Mill Plum, and Cleveland places its title possibilities in the hands of the one-time Pershing High Ace. Cleveland is troubled by injuries which have cracked its offensive line. The Browns, who seemed certain to win the Eastern Division title in 1958, then unexplainably fell apart and lost 4 of their last 8 games, including a title playoff with the New York, will throw football's fastest backfield at the Lion defense. Next Saturday, the Lions will make their home debut when they play the Giants at Briggs Stadium. Man, that was a massacre. Giants killed them in that one. In the annual Free Press Fresh Air Fun Game, once again, another game for charity. So that's that's one really good thing. I mean, if they're playing so many exhibition games, it's a good idea to put make it for some of it anyway for charity. All right, then we got one more here. We got the Sentinel Tribune. So the August 22nd, 1959 edition of the Sentinel Tribune. Let's see what they got to say about the game. All right, here we go. The Browns favored. Ooh, so what's the line? I want to bet some money. Where am I putting my money at here? Oh, let's refresh. Let's try it again. There we go. The odds makers took a wild guess today. And picked the Cleveland Browns to defeat the Detroit Lions by a 4.5 point margin tonight in their exhibition game at the Akron Rubber Bowl. Neither team has won a game on the test schedule, and both are planning extensive workouts for their rookie crops. Detroit has lost to the Chicago Cardinals and tied the Los Angeles Rams. Cleveland hasn't had an all-out scrimmage since their loss August 11th to Pittsburgh. The latest doubtful starter for the Browns is messenger guard Gene Hickerson. He has a bruised chest from a collision with rookie David Lloyd of Georgia. If Hickerson fails to start, rookie John Wooten of Colorado probably will go all the way. The game will be a crucial one for 4 or 5 men now on the Browns roster. That many are slated for cutting following the game. Ooh. Those to be tested tonight include former Buckeye Dick LeBeau, who will play the right cornerback on defense, Sid Youngelman at defensive end, and Bob Tasic at fullback also are up for a close look. Michigan State star Francis O'Brien will open and go all the way at offensive tackle. Jim Nanowski is expected to open for the Browns, and Tobin Rote, the veteran from Texas, who carried the Lions to a National Football League crown in 1957, will be doing the early passing for Detroit. All right, well. And there we go. See, you got all this stuff, right? There's, as they're doing, as the NFL's doing this, the AFL forms its framework of operations. American Football League set out today to form the framework upon which it will try to compete with the long-established National Football League. Moneyed interest from New York, Los Angeles, Houston, Denver, and Minneapolis, St. Paul. So, that's that was another one of the reasons why a lot of these, or some of these games, quite possibly, were being played at other cities, because the NFL wanted to know, because they wanted to expand, and they wanted to get, if the AFL was going into a city that looked like it would be prosperous, for the NFL wanted to get in there. The NFL did not want the AFL to go into Dallas, for instance, and get a leg up in Dallas. They didn't want him to get into another, so some of these games were played to see where the NFL could possibly expand to, Dallas being one of them. And obviously in 1960, the next year, in 1961, the Minnesota Vikings would pop around. All right, so let's start the game, and we're going to go to the Akron Beacon Journal, the August 23rd edition of the Akron Beacon Journal here. As I said, if you're a fan of offense, this game was not for you. All right, here we go. Oh. I love it because back then, so many teams had like no insignias on the side of nothing. I mean, anything on the side of their helmets. Obviously the Browns, but you see the Lions here, they just got a plain helmet. Right. 22,654 see the Lions edge the Browns at the bowl. Detroit captures 9-3 nod. Ooh, Cleveland lacks punch. Who we got here? Somebody's the Lions being that. Steve Junker of the Lions is lifted off his feet by Walt Michaels and the Cleveland Browns teammate after taking a forward pass. And if you hear any snoring in the background, that's just my dog Randy. He's at my feet down here. He's had a tough day. He had to take a lot of naps today. So if you would, shh, keep it down. He's trying to sleep. The Cleveland Browns, showing little and sometimes no offense, lost a 9-3 decision. I mean, I tell you what. I mean, the Browns' offense in this game was really sad. Lost a 9-3 decision to the Lions Saturday night at the Rubber Bowl. The threatening thunderstorms limited last night's crowd to 22,654. There was no rain in the immediate hours before the contest, but with 6 minutes left in the first period, the crowd was sent scurrying by a heavy shower. The rain halted before the second quarter got underway, though. The footing was firm, and the condition of the field caused Coach Paul Brown to comment, "This is tremendous." Huh. I can hardly believe that this is the same field on which we played last year. Somebody did a lot of work here and deserves a lot of credit. This field is now almost as good as when we played on our first game there in 1946. Wow. The Browns' offense was so miserable that only once did Cleveland get beyond the Lions 30. Only one time all game. Could you imagine that? It's only exhibition. I get it, but you're cheering for your team, and only one time did they get beyond the 30-yard line of the other team. But let me read on. But a pass from Jim Nanowski to Frank Clark put them on Detroit's 27. So that's as far as they got all game long. But they promptly lost 13 yards back to the 40 and had to fall back on their most potent offensive weapon, Lou Groza and his toe. So they got down to the 27. And as soon as right after that, they lost 13 yards back to the 40-yard line. I mean, could you imagine that? 3 outstanding defensive stands by the Browns kept the Lions from turning this game into somewhat of a rout. In the second quarter, Jim Schaffner halted a Lion march by intercepting a pass on his own 27. In the third period, Schaffner stole the ball right out of Dan Chamberlain's hands to stop the Lions after a 60-yard march and carry them to the Browns' 34. Lions got down to the 4-yard line in the fourth quarter on a pass interception. Lou Groza averts the shutout. So the Lions got down to the 4-yard line in the fourth quarter on a pass interception by Gary Lowe and a 20-yard run by John Henry Johnson. The Browns' defense forced them to kick a field goal, and Jerry Perry's kick was good from the 13 to make the score 9-3. Late in the fourth stanza, the Lions were stopped on the Browns' 16, and this drive ended with Perry's kick from the 22 was low and wide. Final score of the game came early in the fourth stanza. Lowe made another interception and returned to the Browns' 24. Johnson rambled 20 yards down to the 4. 3 plays lost 2 yards, and Detroit sent Perry in to kick a field goal from the 13. The Lions outgained the Browns 309-210. Detroit passers hit on 8 of 18 aerials for 58 yards, and the ground forces picked up 251 yards. Cleveland's passers hit on 7 of 17 for 86 yards, but the rushers collected only 124 yards. Don Lewis picked up 97 yards in 13 attempts, and Johnson gained the same total in 11 attempts. Rookie Nick Petrosani carried 7 times for 58 yards. Jim Brown, who had a poor evening, gained 36 yards and 9 tries to pace the Browns. All right, we'll go to the, once again, Akron Beacon Journal, August 23rd, 1959. So Jim Brown paced with 36 yards, and Preston Carpenter totaled 31 yards and 5 tries. Jim Nanowski hit 5 of 14 passes for 83 yards. Tobin Rowe connected on 7 of 12 for 72 yards. Clark, with 3 receptions for 56 yards, was the Browns' best receiver. Hopalong Cassidy, with 2 catches for 35 yards, paced the Lions. Detroit drew first blood after the Browns had received the opening kickoff and were forced into a punt. A 15-yard penalty, which pushed the Browns back to their own 19, kept Cleveland from making the initial offensive move. The punt was fielded by Dan Lewis, who signaled a fair catch on the Lions' 35. After 2 plays picked up 4 yards, Lewis took a pitch out and scooted around it right into the Browns' 17 before he was hauled down by Junior Wren. A rope pass was incomplete, and then John Henry Johnson picked up 3 on a draw. A rope to Steve Junker pass was good for 5, and then Johnson went around his left end for 9 yards, and the score Jim Martin's try for point was blocked to leave the Lions with a 6-0 lead. So they scored a touchdown, but Jim Martin's try was blocked. Cleveland got three of the points back on the first play of the second quarter. A 37-yard pass from Jim Nanowski to Frank Clark put the Browns in Detroit territory. On 4th down, Groza booted a field goal from the 40-yard line. Groza almost tied the count just before the end of the first half. The Browns had moved from their own 24 to the Lions' 32, so they didn't quite get down to the 30, but almost. A pass from Nanowski to Ray Renfro counted for 23 yards. With 11 seconds remaining in the half, Groza booted from the 39. The kick was so close to being good that the usually mild-mannered Groza couldn't believe the officials called it wide to the right. He told 3 of them of his beliefs. There was no scoring in the third period, which featured tremendous defensive play and pass interceptions. The Lions took the second half kickoff, and in 9 plays drove 60 yards to the Browns' 34. The big gainer was from Rote to Hopalong Cassidy, and he got the Lions from their own 6 to the 33. Schaffner stole a pass right out of Dan Chamberlain's hands and returned it from his own 25 to the 39 to end the Detroit threat. The Browns picked up 2 first downs before Gary Lowe intercepted a Nanowski pass and returned it 18 yards to the Browns' 47. Detroit moved to the 39, and Jim Martin tried a field goal, which was partially blocked and no good. Just before the third quarter ended, Lowe intercepted another pass on the 40 and returned it to the 24. Nope, gotta do this again. It's just unbelievable. All right. Well, this talks about I don't think this talk has the Browns in it, but a matter of vindication. Lobby derives satisfaction out of being vindicated on a close, difficult decision, like Yankee Stadium when the Cleveland Browns and the New York Yankees played a 28 All-American Conference tie. No, that's nothing really. This doesn't have it. It has the Browns in there. There were 70,000 people in the stands. He reminisced. The Browns stopped New York on the 2-yard line, and on the first play ran a screen pass out of the ground through to Max Speedy. So that's a all right. Has nothing to do with this game here. So, all right, so let's go and see what the plain dealer has to do. Has to say the August 23rd, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. The Plain Dealer. There we go. All right. What you got to say? Lions hand Browns second defeat, 9-3. All right, that's baseball. No pictures there. All right, let's. Here we got some. We got some stats here. The Browns have 5 weeks left before the National Football League season opens and need every minute of the time. They were ragged on offense and defense tonight and dropping a 9-3 exhibition decision to Detroit Lions before 22,654 at the Rubber Bowl. Lou Groza provided Cleveland's 3 points with a 40-yard field goal in the second quarter. Detroit already had a touchdown on John Henry Johnson's first quarter sweep of 8 yards. Browns fail to get beyond the Lions' 27-yard line. Lions concluded the scoring when Jerry Perry booted a 13-yard field goal in the final period. Detroit dominated the game more than the final tally indicates, threatening throughout the second half. Cleveland was unable to keep up any kind of sustained attack and never moved deeper than the Lions' 27. That came just before the half when the Browns settled for Groza's field goal. It was the second preseason defeat for Paul Brown's clubs, which fell before the Steelers in Pittsburgh 12 days ago. The Lions had tied the Los Angeles and lost to the Chicago Cardinals. Jim Ninowski went 3/4 of the game at quarterback, and the second-year passer from Michigan State still doesn't have the touch. The Browns looked sharper when Milt Plum took the helm at the start of the fourth quarter. Milt, the regular quarterback through almost all of last season, completed 2 of 3 passes for 32 yards. Frank Clark dropped one pass out in the clear, and Plum lost another when a completion to Farrell Funston was nullified by a holding penalty. Another bright spot was the performance of Bobby Mitchell. Pressed into service, although he has been with the team only 3 days. He has lost none of his elusiveness. Jim Brown went to the distance at fullback, but the Browns weren't able to shake him loose for any big yards. He picked up 36 yards in 9 tries. So imagine that. It's an exhibition game. And you got a future Hall of Famer in there, possibly maybe the greatest runner of all time, and he went the distance. Could you imagine that? Today's game? Not happening. But you're worried about the guys getting injured. Ninowski, who had better protection than against the Steelers, fired 15 times and hit on 5 of them. He also had a couple dropped. Clark losing a rocket toss that bounced off his chest, and Billy Houghton dropping another. But here you can see some of the stats here, right? I mean, what do we got? The Browns had 12 first downs. The Lions had 15. 210 total yards from the Browns, 309 by the Lions. 7 out of 17 passing, 8 out of 18. Each team had 2 passes intercepted. Punt returns, we got penalties. Each team, the Lions were penalized 4 times for 44 yards. Lions 4 times for 31 yards. 2 fumbles. Nobody lost any fumbles, apparently. So, I always seem to notice this. It seems like a lot of these games is like the amount of penalty yards and the penalties called is very minimal compared to today. Some of the games today are almost unwatchable because the refs take over the game. Really, really. All right, so we got another one with the Plain Dealer, another August 23rd, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. Finish up this article here. All right, here we go. Browns Junior Wren, number 42, laying on the ground there. Bats down past aimed at Lions. Hopalong Cassidy, number 40. In the first period, number 46 is Dick LaBelle. Oh, refresh. And what I like about this, here's the ball. Okay. Tobin Road, who played about half the game, completed 7 out of his 12 passes for 72 yards. The Browns line, which stiffened deep in its own territory, was ripped by the running of Johnson, Danny Lewis, and Nick Petrosani. Johnson, the veteran fullback and future Hall of Famer, and Lewis, second-year halfback from Wisconsin, gained 97 yards each. Petrosani, newcomer from Notre Dame and the Lions' first draft choice, gained 57 in 7 attempts. Big Nick showed more speed than expected. The Browns looked weak at defensive ends, so Dick Shafrath, who joins the battle on Monday, will be welcome. Brown tried Willie Davis, Henry Jordan, and Sid Youngelman. Now, Willie Davis is the one they want to trade him to the Packers, and he wound up becoming a future Hall of Famer. So I guess they didn't realize what they had. Let's see. At the Willie Davis, Henry Jordan, and Sid Youngelman at the position, with the veteran Youngelman seeming to do the best job. Wiggin due to return next Saturday. Paul Wiggin, expected to hold down one of the end spots, was out with his shoulder separation. He should be ready when the club faces the 49ers in San Francisco next Sunday afternoon. Detroit totaled 309 yards to 210 for the Browns, who faced the Lions again in the Motor City September 13th. The two clubs do not meet in the regular season. So these teams played each other 2 times in the exhibition season. Cleveland gained 124 yards rushing and 86 throwing, as compared to 251 yards rushing and 58 yards passing. Jim Schaffner, who played most of the game at the defensive halfback post vacated by Don Paul, intercepted 2 passes and returned a total of 40 yards. Gary Lowe was the big man in the theft department for the Lions, picking off 2 of Nanowski's pitches and returning them 41 yards. Grosda missed a field goal try from the 39 just before the half. From the press box, the kick looked good, and the toe and his holder, Bob Tasick of Michigan, protested. Jim Martin, former Browns performer, had a 46-yard attempt blocked by Davis, and Perry was wide with a placement from the 22. Wayne Walker made the attempt after the Lions touchdown, but it hit the crossbar and didn't get over. The Browns will be back at work Monday for the final 4 days at Hiram College. They may be rough ones too, as Paul Brown was unhappy with the exhibition. I can certainly see why. All right, so we got there we are. There's the Browns, and there's the lineups for each team, the offensive and defensive. Because then they got tackles, right? I mean, they're ends, right? So it's like they got offense and defense. Same thing with the Browns. All right, so that is that. All right, so that's kind of like the Cleveland, the Ohio version. Let's see what the Detroit's got to say. The line version. What do they got to say here? All right, share screen. All right, so we got. Bam, here we go. Is this the first one? Nope. Bam, here we go. All right. The Detroit Times, the August 23rd, 1959 edition of the Detroit Times. Browns bow to Lions 9-3. Detroit Lions came out with a running attack to win their first exhibition game tonight as they checked the Cleveland Browns 9-3 before 22,654 fans. A week ago against Chicago Cardinals, the Lions were able to net only 46 yards. Tonight they were just shy of 300. Yeah, I mean, they had, I remember correctly, the Lions had 4 first downs the week before in the preseason. Could you imagine that, going a whole game getting 4 first downs? The drive was supplied by Danny Lewis, who has been the best runner for the Lions to date. It also marked the emergence of John Henry Johnson, while rookie Nick Petrosani gave the Lions attack late force. John Henry scored the only touchdown when he drove over from the 8 in the first quarter. Lou Groza's goal made it 6-3 in the second half on a boot from the 33, but missed another later in the period from the 39. Now, it was from the 33. I think that they were on the 33-yard line because it said in one of the other articles, it said he kicked a 40-yard field goal. So they might have got down to the 33, but Lou Groza, I'm thinking if the other article is correct, obviously went back 7 yards and booted a field goal from the 40-yard line. Jerry Perry's field goal provided the other Lions score early in the fourth quarter. The Lions defense held the Browns fullback Jim Brown took only 36 yards, while Bobby Mitchell had only 13. Lewis had an unofficial total of 97 yards running, and John Henry was right behind him with 95. Petrosani came off with a total of 58. So they had like 250 yards rushing. Whew. Lions coach George Wilson said before tonight's game that he was looking for a running attack, and he got it. It was the 16th time the Lions have beaten the Browns in the overall series between the two teams. Four were losses, one a tie. Danny Lewis set up the Lions' first score when he took a pitch out wide from Tobin Rote and raced 44 yards down to the Browns' 17. Rote hit John Henry Johnson and Steve Junker with short passes. Then John Henry, with rookie Mike Raybold laying out the Browns' defense, slanted wide for 8 yards for a touchdown. Went over untouched. Wayne Walker missed the point, and the Lions led 6-0. The running of Lewis and Johnson gave the Lions' running attack a punch missing during the first half with the Cardinals last week. The blocking of Raybold stood out. Jim Nanowski seemed to have the Browns on the march when he hit Frank Clark for a 27-yard pass, but the Lions' defense, with Jimmy David and rookie Jim Steffen, trapped the quarterback and fullback Jim Brown for losses. Lou Groza then kicked a field goal for the Browns' first score as the second quarter opened, making it Lions 6, Browns 3. Rote moved the Lions from their own 20 down to the Browns' 45 as Johnson and Lewis shattered the Browns' defense. Here, Tobin's passes to Junker bounced out of the latter's hands and was caught by Jim Schaffner, who raced from his own 26 to the Lions' 48. Nanowski hit Clark with a pass that brought Cleveland to the Lions' 32, where the Lions' defense halted the threat. Morrill replaced Rote at the quarterback and on the first play hit rookie Chamberlain for 14 yards, but the Browns stalled the Lions on their 42. The Browns went from their own 24 to the Lions' 39, featured by a 16-yard pass from Nanowski to Renfro. Groza's second try for a field goal, this time from the 39, missed, and the half ended with the Lions leading 6-3. As the second half opened, Rote's passes brought the Lions to the Browns' 38 as he hit Cassidy for 33 yards, Lewis and Chamberlain for 10 each, and Johnson for 9. Schaffner nipped the drive, however, when he intercepted up here for the second time and returned it 14 yards to the Browns' 38. Lowe put the Lions back in contention, intercepting a Nanowski pass and racing it to the Browns' 42. Martin's field goal from the Browns' 46 was no good, as it was deflected by Davis. Lowe took the Lions to the Browns' 23 when he snagged one of Mill Plum's passes as the ball deflected off the fingers of Renfro as the third quarter ended. John Henry crashed the Browns' left side for 19 yards to the Browns' 4 as the final quarter started. Petrosani at fullback got scant inches at center. Jerry Reichow at quarter missed Junker with a pass. John Henry, playing a halfback, was trapped for a 3-yard loss. With Morrill holding, Perry kicked a field goal from the 13-yard line, and the Lions led 9-3. Later, Johnson, on a handoff from Reichow, raced through the left side of the Browns for 50 yards down to the 19. The 1-2 punch of John Henry and Petrosani moved the ball down to the 7. Cleveland stiffened, and it was 4th and 14 when Perry tried his second field goal. It was low. Could you imagine that kick? Could you imagine that? Oh, my goodness. Nowadays, well, of course, that's what happened there with like the straight-on kickers. But could you imagine that? being at the 14-yard line, kicking it, and it winds up being low. You're kicking it like maybe under the goalpost. Oh my goodness. That happened in today's game. The kicker just turned around and just walked to the locker room and just take your helmet off, grab your clothes, and just keep walking. Don't even bother. Petrosani, with 2 minutes left, raced through the middle for 37 yards to the Browns' 22 and added 5, and the Lions were on the 17. Lewis and Petrosani whacked at the Browns line, moving to the 6 as the game ended. All right, so that we got here. The Detroit News. And Ted Williams hit a home run. As he's celebrating his 41st birthday next Sunday. It's a home run. I think it was his 491st. Congratulations. All right, where are we at here? We got a football game to talk about here. There we go. Johnson's running sparks Lion victory over the Browns. The Detroit Lions scored early on an 8-yard touchdown run by John Henry Johnson and added a 13-yard field goal by Jerry Perry in the fourth quarter in an exhibition game with the Cleveland Browns before 30,000 spectators, only 22,000, at the Rubber Bowl. The final score was Detroit 9, Cleveland 3, as the Lions gained their first exhibition victory. Gary Lowe of Detroit intercepted 2 passes by Jim Ninowski, former Michigan State teammate, to spark Detroit's third-period efforts. Detroit took a 6-3 halftime lead as the two teams slithered on the wet turf following a sudden rainstorm. Detroiter Jim Ninowski, quarterbacking for the Browns, was harassed by the Lion defense shortly after the opening kickoff. When Detroit got the ball, Danny Lewis ran 44 yards on the third play from scrimmage. Junior Wren tackled him on the Browns 17. Largely in Tobin Rote's pass to Steve Junker at the 8, Detroit found itself with 4th down and 1. Coach George Wilson disdained a field goal attempt. Instead, John Henry Johnson veered to the left, slid around the mass defense, and scored easily from the 8. So I guess everybody was kind of pretty much piled up in the middle. In an experiment, Wayne Walker tried to convert the extra point and missed. Ninowski's 36-yard pass to Frank Clark gave the Browns a scoring opportunity, but the attack bogged down. Lou Groza kicked a 40-yard field goal on the first play of the second period. So I guess in that other article, they said the Browns got down to the 33. Well, then, Groza winds up 7 yards back, kicked a 40-yard field goal. So, in the balance of the second, all right, let's go to the next one here. In the balance of the second, here we go. Period, Rote directed a Detroit drive that was halted by Jimmy Schaffner's interception. Actually, the ball was stolen while Earl Morrall was at quarterback. The pass was intended for Junker. A little later, the Browns gambled on a running play on 4th and 2. The Lions stopped fullback Jimmy Brown and took the ball on their 32. Rookie Dan Chamberlain caught a 14-yard pass from Morrall in the next drive. When the Browns got the ball, Ninowski moved across midfield on passes to Preston Carpenter and Ray Renfro. With 11 seconds to halftime, Groza missed a field goal from the 39. Groza protested referee Bob Austin's call on the play. I think that's... Whoops. I do believe that's it. Yep. See, a lot of times, one of the things is it winds up being it's just an exhibition game, and a lot of it also winds up being where the contest starts at like 8:00 or whatever it is. As the game's going on, the newspapers are trying to get their stories done and typed all up and ready for print. So sometimes if the game ends late, sometimes the newspapers don't always have the whole story, or they don't even have the whole game I've seen a couple newspaper articles that just say like they only have it until like halftime. The game might have gotten over at 11 o'clock or so at night. They only have their story up until like halftime. They'll have so and so leads at half, So, but that didn't necessarily happen for the most part during the regular season, because for the most part in the regular season, the games were played. For the most part, there were some games played on Saturday, but most of them were played on Sunday, like whatever 1, 2 o'clock. So by the time the papers were ready to go out Sunday night or whatever, all the games were played and all the stories were written and everything like that. But this was just another one of those games where they had played at a neutral, kind of a neutral site, although it was in Ohio. But that's where a lot of the teams did. And as you see here, a lot of the games were played also for charity too, which is really, really good. I wish maybe they would do something like that nowadays, but it's very important to get the 3 preseason games that they have nowadays. It's very important to get those guys trying to make the team in there. And of course, you don't want to, back in the day, they played 6 and 7 preseason games, and you had starters, Hall of Famers playing something like the whole game. That ain't happening nowadays. It's still obviously about tackling and all of that stuff and everything, but sometimes because the amount of money these guys are making nowadays, it's get them in there for a short while, bring them out and bubble wrap them, and make sure that they're nice and healthy for the regular season. Well, it wasn't always like that, especially back in 1959. So that's the way it was on this date in Akron, Ohio, in the Rubber Bowl, as the Detroit Lions played the Cleveland Browns on August 22nd, 1959. In pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.